is a 1976 Cadillac Fleetwood Series 75, and today I'll take you around the interior and exterior of the car and then take you for a drive. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Before we get to the car for today, I want to first of all thank you all for all the support you have given towards the channel. We've been growing in subscribers recently, which has been really nice. We're up to over 1,300, which is a huge number, and it's really exciting to me, and I can't wait to bring more videos like this just to you guys. It's been a little while since we've had an actual car review on this channel. Recently we've been doing the car events videos, which I hope that you guys have been enjoying. I've had a lot of fun filming those, and if you haven't looked at them, please check them out. There are a lot of really cool cars in there, and definitely some interesting stuff that most people don't get to see every day. And it was really a lot of fun filming those, and I'll probably do more in the future. Thank you all again so much. It means the world to me to be able to do this channel and to be able to interact with all of you. But anyways, let's get back to the video. So today we have another Cadillac. This is a 1976 Fleetwood Series 75, and this is the sedan version. This is a really special car. The Fleetwood Series 75 was built by Cadillac for many decades. I believe back in the 40s, the Series 75 first started being built, and even up to through the 80s it was built. And it was actually built in Cadillac factories right on the assembly line. Much of it was actually handmade. Just much more luxurious than a regular Fleetwood. There's extra padding in the roof and around the car for sound deadening. Each one of these Fleetwood 75s actually went through 12 hours of testing by Cadillac to make sure they were fit for actually to be sold. For example, each one of these cars was placed under a simulated rainstorm for 4 minutes. They would also put the car under a vacuum, and they would see if there were any water leaks or if any pinhole leaks were on the car, and they would fix that and continue to run the car through those tests until it was completely solid. And they also checked the electrical system 3 times back in the day to make sure that all of that worked properly. It's also a stretched vehicle as well, so it's a lot longer than a regular Fleetwood was even back in the 70s when this car was built. But this car is so special that they would only build about 6 to 12 of them per day, which is not very much considering that today, you know, most Cadillacs, they're making probably hundreds of them every day. Who knows, but they're making thousands. But this is a very low production car, very special and very expensive back in the day as well. Most people don't know exactly how much work went into making these cars just extra opulent and more luxurious and just proper for people who bought them back then. I'm so excited to show you guys this car, so without further ado, let's take a closer look and start the review. So the thing that I think I should point out first, which is most important about this car, is just its overall size. I mean, just looking at this thing from the outside, you get to see how long it is. I mean, this thing is absolutely gigantic. The length of this car is about 252.2 inches long, and comparing this to the length of the regular Fleetwood back then, which was also a huge 4-door sedan, that car was about 230.7 inches long. So they added over 20 more inches to this car just to make it more opulent. And it's already gigantic to start out with. And something else important to mention about the length of the Fleetwood Series 75 is that this was the last year of the big-bodied Fleetwood cars that Cadillac made. After 1976, the Fleetwood was downsized significantly, much smaller than this. They still made the Fleetwood Series 75, but it just wasn't as opulent, it wasn't nearly as big. It really just changed what Cadillac was. That's why in many ways this 76 is the best year of the Fleetwood Series 75, because it's the newest version of the big Fleetwood Series 75s. So moving on to the front end of the Fleetwood Series 75, there are a few things I'd like to point out here. First of all, for this 1976 model year, I believe the grille changed slightly between the last year and this 76 model year. It's also similar to the 76 Eldorado convertible that I showed you guys on this channel. The headlights are pretty much exactly the same. The grille is very similar. The bumper is very similar as well. So it's kind of neat to see how similar those model years of Cadillacs were back in the day. However, there is something else I'd like to point out. With the front of the Eldorado, it kind of had more of a pointed tip to the end of it, and it had an interesting looking Cadillac logo in black on the front end of the Eldorado on both sides. This Fleetwood Series 75 also carries over that strange looking Cadillac logo. It is actually over here by the turn signal, and it actually glows at nighttime as well, so you can actually see that Cadillac logo glowing. And I also found out from a viewer, he commented that that logo is actually the Cadillac logo from some Cadillac models in the 40s, which I think is super cool that Cadillac decided to put some of its older logos on this car, just to kind of show that they had some heritage and wanted to show that off a little bit. So I think that is really cool. We also have a cornering light up here, which is very important. Nothing too special, but it's very helpful to have at nighttime. We have over here above the grille the Cadillac script, so we can know what car this is from the front. Of course, you have a huge Cadillac emblem, which doesn't look so big compared to the rest of the car, but compared to any other car today, it looks pretty big. And a nice quirk about the Cadillac emblem here is that it actually moves. This is what many Cadillacs used to do back in the day, pretty much all of them actually, with hood ornaments. One of the reasons for that is either because if you go through a car wash, it'll easily bend, it won't break off, or if someone tries to steal it, it's a little bit harder to do. I actually heard about some older Cadillacs, actually, the horn would go off if the emblem was to bend. So if someone was trying to steal it, the horn would go off and hopefully scare them away. Kind of neat that the old emblems did that. And one of my favorite Cadillac features that Cadillacs used to have back in the day is up front. We have fiber optic cables that run up to here, which can show that your lights are working at nighttime, whether it's your regular headlights, your high beams, or your turn signals. If one of those lights burns out, you won't see it glow up in the indicators up here. But otherwise, we just have a big chrome bumper up here that looks like it can ram into a brick wall and totally survive. I just really love the front end of this car. Very massive and very much a Cadillac. So moving back a little bit to the front fender of the car. First of all, you may have noticed that up here there's this weird round thing here sticking out of the car, and it has the Cadillac emblem on it. Well, that's actually for the alarm system that came with this car. I don't believe that was a factory option. It may have been a dealer installed option back then, but this car did receive that option. And this door slides open, and that's where you can use your key for the alarm system to turn it on or off. This alarm system doesn't work on this car anymore, but it did have a lot of interesting features. For example, it has a sensor on it where if you would shake the car, if the car would move, the alarm system would go off. It would also go off whenever any of the doors opened, if the hood opened, I believe, as well, or even the trunk. If those are open when the car alarm is on, the alarm would go off. Below the alarm system, we have the word Fleetwood here. I believe that in the 75 model year, and maybe even some of the older ones, it was actually in more of like a script. It was a little bit different looking, but this badge, I believe, only came on the 1976 Series 75s, but it looks pretty cool. It's also in blue, which matches the Commodore blue paint on this car. Now moving along further back, we also have our driver's door here, of course, but on the mirror you'll notice that it says Cadillac on the back, which is pretty cool. So you can know from the side of the car this is a Cadillac. You gotta have that everywhere so people know exactly what it is. We of course have our keyhole and our driver's door handle, but one of my favorite things about this car and this door handle is that there's actually a little light underneath the door handle in order to light up the keyhole when you come to unlock your car at nighttime. And this actually isn't quite a light bulb. This is actually a fiber optic cable. There's another light inside of the door where a fiber optic cable runs through to this point. I didn't realize that when I did this in my Barrett's video, because the 1978 Barrett's also had a lighted keyhole here, and I thought it was a little light bulb in there, but no, it's actually a fiber optic cable, which is pretty ingenious. When you walk up to the car at night, press the handle, that light will come on, as well as the rest of the interior lights as well. It's really nice so you can see what you're doing when you're getting into your car, and you'll know exactly where the keyhole is to unlock it. And the other neat thing about the lighted keyhole is that there's another light on the passenger side as well. So if you're coming in on that side of the car, you'll also be able to see the keyhole in order to unlock the car on that side. And now moving a little bit further back to the rear doors. The doors were actually different on this Fleetwood Series 75 than regular Fleetwood. One of the most important changes they made was actually to the top of the doors. As you can see, this is a closed door where the window doesn't just open. The whole frame around here opens like most modern cars do. But the regular Fleetwood wasn't quite like this. This one has a higher cutout, so it's easier for people to enter into the back seat of this Fleetwood. But they didn't only make the door a little bit taller, they also made it a little bit wider to make it easy for the people to get into the car to be chauffeured. We also have opera lights on both sides of the rear doors. Those are very nice. You can just kind of see at nighttime that there's a little opera light. Now, as you probably already noticed, this car has a vinyl top, which was optional, and it also has no window here. As some of you may know, most Fleetwood Series 75s actually had a third window on the side here, which you can see into the back seat. But this car actually has a special option that actually covers up that third window. What is actually kind of funny is that there is still a piece of glass back here, and just at the factory they left the glass in and just covered it over with vinyl and other sorts of cloths. But I'll go over the build sheet of this car later with you guys to tell you exactly how much of an option it was to cover up this third window, and you may be surprised at how much someone paid to cover up the rear window for more privacy in the back. I thought it might be handy to show you guys exactly how the wheel skirts come off of this car. It's actually kind of neat. There's a handle on the back side of this, which you kind of have to feel for. You move it up and out of place, pull it down like so, until it's in the out position, and as you can see it's kind of falling out of place. There are two kind of hooks on the back sides which holds in the wheel skirt. You pull it towards yourself and then down, and voila, the wheel skirt is off of the Fleetwood 75. But to put the wheel skirt back in, you just do the same thing but in opposite order. So you kind of have to carefully move the hooks into place on both sides. Put it in like so, and then once again move the handle back up and into its position like that, and we're back in business. Alright, now moving along to the back end of the Fleetwood Series 75. Not too much anything special here. We just have another Fleetwood badge there on the back of the car and the Cadillac logo. We also have lights implemented into the bumper of the car. Many Cadillacs at this time were doing that instead of putting lights in the fins. But luckily, these fins do still light up at nighttime, but the actual tail lights are implemented into the rear bumper like so. But what is pretty cool is that you can actually fill up the gas tank from back here. We have a license plate that moves like a little hinge, like a door, and we can of course fill up the car back there. You can also get into the trunk back here. If you have your keys, you can actually slide open the Cadillac logo. It locks in place for you, and then you just put the key in like so, twist, and the trunk automatically opens for you. Now, as you guys can probably see, this trunk is in pretty rough shape, and I apologize for that. Hopefully you can get at least an idea that how big this trunk is. It's a pretty good size. You can definitely fit a lot of stuff in here. The spare tire does take up a good amount of space, unfortunately, but you still do have enough room for suitcases and whatever else. But what is really cool to point out while this backboard and all the cloth is down is that you can actually see the rear air conditioning and rear heat. This car had two separate climate control systems. Passengers in the back of the car can control their own AC or heat and just make the car whatever temperature they want in the back, while the driver and front seat passenger, they can control whatever air they want in the front. And of course, the thing that comes next, I can just show you guys the trunk pull down. Voila, that is pretty cool. I just love that these old Cadillacs have trunk pull down. Definitely a really nice way to be able to close the trunk without having to slam it. Okay, now we'll make our way back up front where we can check out what is underneath the hood. Now, of course, we have a big hood under here, so that means we have a big engine. There we go. So, just like many other Cadillacs from 1976 in that era, we have the 500 cubic inch V8 engine under here. You may recognize this as being underneath the red Eldorado convertible that I showed you guys. This is a very similar, if not the same configuration, except for this vehicle is rear wheel drive. The Eldorado was front wheel drive. However, I believe the power output in this car is the same as the Eldorado, or at least very similar. I believe in this car it makes 190 horsepower and about 360 pound-feet of torque. But I've heard different numbers about this, and I've also heard that the Fleetwood Series 75s may have actually been given some more power, at least in maybe the limousine version. I heard somewhere around 215 horsepower and 400 pound-feet of torque, but I've read some conflicting articles about that, and I'm not totally sure how much power is actually in this vehicle. However, this still makes a fair amount, at least. It's nothing extremely impressive considering the size of this engine, but it's enough power to actually make this Fleetwood Series 75 go from 0 to 60 in about 13.3 seconds or so. Once we get it out on the drive, we'll actually test that out to see if it really is that quick. But otherwise, the 500 cubic inch V8 engine is very reliable. I've always heard it's very easy to work on, and it's a good fit for this vehicle. A little bit of a shame it doesn't have more power, but however, it's not absolutely awful. This is still very much a good driving car. All right, let's see what the 500 sounds like when we start her up. All right, let's really quickly go through the owner's manual of the Fleetwood Series 75. So pretty simple, just like a real thin book. Obviously it's not made of leather or anything, it's just a regular looking book. Kind of gives a quick word to Cadillac owners, kind of explains what this owner's manual is supposed to do. But basically it's going to tell you basically everything about how the car works, how to fix things even. This one just looks cool. I just love the classic look. Very neat. Nothing too special on it, but kind of cool to see these older classic owner's manuals. Alright guys, I thought I'd show you the keys real quick before we get inside the car. So we do have 3 keys that came with this car. First of all, we have the round key, which opens up the trunk, as well as the front door locks. And of course we have our square key to actually start the Fleetwood Series 75. So it's kind of cool that this had the round and square keys, just like most old General Motors cars had. We also have a really interesting looking key, and if you paid close attention to the keyhole for the alarm system, you will know this is the alarm system key. This came with it, and this is what you use to turn on and off the alarm system. Pretty simple, but very cool. Alright guys, now that we took a look at the outside of the Fleetwood Series 75, let's take a look at the inside and see what it's like. Okay, so taking a look first at the front of the interior, it is very, very nice up here. I really like the color blue on the inside here. It matches the outside of this car beautifully, the exterior paint. I really do like the use of wood in here, the softer materials. It's not brilliant. I've kind of mentioned this in other videos that we've done of 70s Cadillacs. There are still a lot of interior quality issues, or nothing seems to quite align up perfectly. A lot of that could be because this car is over 45 years old. However, it all still looks very beautiful. First of all, the door panel here, I really do like the softer material at the top. It has nice use of wood. I do especially like the wood behind the pull handle here. It looks like the Cadillac wreath back there, which is pretty cool. We also do have a light on the door as well. This light is actually pretty neat. You turn it on with the flip of that switch, but you can also twist it and kind of point it in whatever direction you want. Kind of a strange design, but it's kind of neat that they thought of that back then. And pretty much directly below that light we have our window switches, as well as door locks and window locks. And we do have a knob at the front of those switches, which is for adjusting the driver's side mirror, which is pretty cool. With these buttons, I do like how they're metal. They all feel very nice. They're high quality. They're not like plastic buttons today, so it actually feels really nice. But anyways, once again, I love the looks of this interior. I do like the blue as well as the wood. So now let's get into that driver's seat and see how comfortable it is. Oh, ooh, yeah, this seat is really nice and plush. What's actually interesting is that this fabric on this interior has a special name. It was actually called Blue Medici Velour Fabric, and it's actually an upgraded fabric from the regular seats that came in the Fleetwood Series 75. What's actually interesting is that this fabric comes directly from the Fleetwood Talisman, which was another high-end Fleetwood that you could purchase back in the day. These seats aren't actually as poofy as the Talisman seats would have been, but this fabric here is the same, so it's a little bit higher end. But although these seats aren't as poofy as the Talisman seats, they're still extremely comfortable. They're very soft. It is power adjustable. I do have controls down here for the seat. I can move it forwards, backwards. I can tilt the bottom of the seat, but I don't have the power recliner. I do believe that was an option, but this car does not have that. But speaking of options, this car does have some very interesting ones, which I'd like to go through with you guys right now. One of the options that this car came with is the Twilight Sentinel, and that automatically turns the headlights on or off. We also have delay wipers, which is a really nice option to have. Now, this car also came with cruise control, which was optional. And to use cruise control, you just have this button on the end of the stalk here. You push that in, and that'll automatically turn on cruise control when you're at speeds. We also have an optional 8-track player in this car. So if you push back the top portion of the radio here, you can actually see the internals of the 8-track player. Another option is the tilt and telescoping steering wheel. We have a lever to move the steering wheel up and down, as well as another on top of the steering wheel, which can be pushed over to the side to adjust the steering wheel exactly where it is. We also have an optional lighted passenger vanity mirror, which is kind of hard to believe that was an option back then, but it was, and this car has it. Of course, the opera lights in the back behind the rear doors are also optional as well. The final option this car came with was illuminated entry, which of course are the lights that turn on when you come up to the car at nighttime when you press the handle. So a lot of options that came with this car. And now I have a list here. I'm going to show you guys some of the costs and the numbers that came with this car, from the base price to how much this car actually cost with the options. It's actually pretty significant. So this car back in the day had a $14,889 base price. However, the 8-track was $275. You had the vinyl top, which was $819, pretty significant. You have the carpeted floor mats. Unfortunately, those are missing from this car, but it did come with carpeted floor mats. Those were $26. However, the most expensive option, like I said, this might come to you as a surprise. This is actually the covering up the third window in the back with vinyl. This was a $2,026 option, which is unbelievable. That is an extremely expensive option, and I'm not sure why. I'm not sure if it just took extra work and extra material to cover up that third window at the factory, but that's why most people did not order the third window covered when they bought Fleetwood Series 75s back in the day. However, once you add in all the options for this specific Fleetwood Series 75, it all adds up to $18,040, which is pretty astounding. That's a lot of money for back in 1976, but you sure did get a heck of a lot of car for it. So now that we got all of the options out of the way, I'll kind of give a quick tour of what we have here. We have, of course, our headlight controls, as well as our climate controls here for the front passengers of the car. And then directly in front of me, of course, we have our tri-spoke steering wheel. This was switched out for a different steering wheel as later models came along. This is pretty much the same exact steering wheel that was in the 76 Eldorados, as well as the dashboard. The whole layout in this car, at least in the front portion, is almost exactly the same as the 76 Eldorado that I showed you guys. And then in front of me we have our speedometer, of course. As you can see, this car has 99,000 miles, in case if you were curious. Then to the right of that, we have our power antenna switch. You can move it up or down from this. We have our radio with the 8-track player. What's pretty cool about this radio is that you can actually set several different presets. I believe you can have 5 different presets. All you have to do is go to a specific channel, push the button in, and that preset is memorized. Whenever you press that button again, the radio would automatically go to whatever channel you chose. Below the radio, we have our ashtray and our cigarette lighter. You can light up a cigarette if you want to, or hopefully you don't smoke. You'd plug in your phone instead. And then to the right of that, we have our glove box. And what's really funny about the glove box is we have a yellow switch in the glove box, which is for the trunk. It actually is a trunk release, very similar to other Cadillacs I've shown you guys. We also have a nice little reading lamp underneath the dashboard here. Then above all of this, on the left side of the car, we have our fuel gauge over here. And then further to the right, we have our clock, which doesn't work. I can't recall seeing a Cadillac from the 70s where the clock actually works, so they must have been relatively cheap. Further on to the right of the dashboard, we have our Cadillac script, and then below that we have our Fleetwood script, as well as a Cadillac badge. And of course above me we have our visors here. Now it's funny, like I said, the passenger, they had an optional visor, mirror, and light. The driver did not have that luxury. They could not get a mirror and a light, or at least this car is not optioned to have that, but at least the passenger has that option, and they can look at themselves in the mirror. Like I mentioned before, we have our switch for the driver's side mirror on the door. The one for the passenger side is actually right above the power antenna switch. You, of course, turn that knob and that'll adjust the passenger side mirror. And then towards the floor, we also have a interesting looking button by my left foot. That's actually a button to turn on or off the high beams on this car. You don't have a switch by the steering wheel or anywhere else like modern cars do. You have a floor button, which is actually pretty smart. You can just use your foot to reach over and press the button, and then you don't have to distract or move your hands and distract yourself when you're going down the road. You can just easily press that button to turn on your high beams. Now, something else that's really important for me to mention about the Fleetwood Series 75s, there are actually two versions of the Fleetwood Series 75. This one is the sedan version. We also had the limousine version, and there were some important distinctions between those two cars, and they served two different purposes. The limousine version was more for a chauffeur type car. It focused more on the people on the back. It gave them special options that this sedan version did not come with. The sedan version is made to either be a chauffeur car or a driver car, but it focused more on comforts for the driver. For example, the limousine version of this car did not have a nice adjustable bench seat like this one does. It would have had a divider window directly behind the seats, which would have limited the space for the driver or the front passenger, and the seat was also not nearly as comfortable. It was leather, but it simply wouldn't have had nearly as much space or controls. So people would buy the sedan version of the Fleetwood 75 in order to have a very long and heavy car, because supposedly that would give you a better ride, but also give you all the creature comforts that the limousine version did not offer. Now, some other differences between the limousine and the sedan version is that with the divider window or the partition behind the driver's seat, the people in the back could actually adjust that window, move it up and down as they pleased. The limousine version, the people in the back also had controls to lock and unlock the doors. What's also kind of cool is that the limousine version of this car also had a keyhole in the right rear door, so then when the chauffeur brings you back to your car, he'll be able to unlock your door right there, open it, let you in, and then he can go around and unlock his door from this side. So it's actually kind of smart on Cadillac's part to have made both kinds of cars, one just specifically for chauffeuring and one just for people to drive and have a longer car. So before we climb way back there into the back seat, I'm actually going to point out a few things for you guys. First of all, we have our big door here. What's really unique about this door is that it has two ashtrays. Both of the rear doors have this. As you can see, there's one near the front of the door and one towards the rear. And the reason for that is because there are actually two rows of seats back here. These seats can actually fold out if you pull on the handle and fold up the back seat. You can actually sit here and have three more people in this row. These seats are actually very uncomfortable. The backrest doesn't really go that far up your back. It's kind of a harder seat. Definitely not somewhere you'd want to sit for very long. It also doesn't have seat belts, so it's a bit unsafe. However, if you're just going around town with more people than you normally have, you can sit them there, and they can be comfortable for 10 or 15 minutes, whatever. And also behind the jump seats, you can see that we actually have several footrests for both of the back seat passengers. These footrests can be moved. As you can see, they're in the forward position right now, but if you pull them back, they can actually be pulled a little bit closer to the rear seat passengers, so they can kind of choose exactly where they want their footrests just to make their feet a little bit more comfortable in the back of the Series 75. But overall on the back, the materials are still very similar to the front, so you still do have nice soft carpets. You still have the really nice fabric seat that you get in the front. The wood is still just as nice as the front. You get the same patterns. Pretty much everything is the same. So I do really like the back area. This is really where you want to be on the Fleetwood Series 75. Another quirk about the door is that there's actually an air vent down near the bottom of the door. As you can see, there's actually a hole here. The air travels from the back from the AC or the heat. So that's one of the ways for air to get to the back seat passengers. There's also holes in the ceiling for air to come through, but you can actually flip down a little tab, and that actually causes for more powerful air to blow through. And what I like about the back of the Fleetwood Series 75 is you still get really nice chrome door sills, similar to what you do in the front, except it doesn't have the badge on it, but it still looks so shiny and beautiful here, and it really makes this car feel so luxurious as you're getting into it. Alright, now I'm going to climb into the back seat of the Fleetwood Series 75 and see just how nice it is back there. Alright, so now I'm in the back rear seat of the Fleetwood 75, and first of all, before I kind of talk about the back seat here, I want to give you guys the reason why I chose this seat to sit in. Of course, the Fleetwood Series 75 is kind of made to be a car that could be made for chauffeuring, and where you want to be when you're being chauffeured around is in the right rear seat. And the reason for that is because it's technically the best seat, because if you need to be dropped off somewhere, You just pull up, have your chauffeur pull up to a curb, and you're already on the curb side of the car, so you can easily step out on that side. So this is typically where the most important person sits when they're being chauffeured around. And Cadillac gave the person that sits here many of the features that you can get from the back seat. But before we get to some of those features, I'll first of all tell you guys exactly how I feel in this seat. This is extremely comfortable. Of course, I can stretch out my legs completely. I mean, I literally, even with the jump seat there, I have more than enough room to completely extend my legs and even put it on the footrest up there if I wanted to. The seat is just as nice as the front seat, just as soft, just as pillowy, just has the same fabric as the front, so it's just really a nice place to be. I definitely do feel very cocooned back here, especially because the third window is blocked. There's a little bit less light that would come in here, and it feels just a little bit more enclosed. So I don't mind that, but maybe other people wouldn't like that so much. Maybe if you get car sick easily, this wouldn't be the best place to sit, honestly. My one complaint about missing this window is you do kind of miss stuff. You can't really easily see out to the side of the car, so you got to kind of lean forward and look out the door side window to be able to actually see out there. But it is kind of nice to have that privacy. People back in the day would have probably have liked that because you're relatively important. You don't really want people to be looking inside of your car all the time to see who's being chauffeured or driven. So it's kind of nice to have that privacy, but it is amazing, again, how expensive it was to be able to get this window just covered up with a little bit of fabric and vinyl. So going back to some of the features that people had back here, this car has, as you can see, a door here, and like I mentioned before, you have rear climate control back here. This is how you would control it. You have a dial here that can obviously display the temperature you want it to be at. You just scroll up or down, and you also have a switch to turn the climate control on or off. However, this car is missing one of the controls that many of these cars came with, and that would be the radio controls. Since this car has the 8-track player, that actually removed the Wonder Bar from the radio, and that also removed the controls for the radio back here. So although the 8-track was an option, it did, we believe, remove the option to be able to actually control the radio back here, which is a shame. I wish that this car did not have the 8-track player because, one, we don't have any 8-tracks, and two, we also would have gotten controls for the radio back here, which would have been really neat. Now, something that either passenger can do on the left side or the right side, they can either turn on their lamp with this switch, that'll light up the lamp above you on the ceiling, and you can also open or close both of the rear windows. You can either open or close the right one or the left one from either seat, which is a very good idea. If you are back here being chauffeured, you want to open up both windows, you can do that. Now, something really cool that you can actually see up on the ceiling behind my head are two little red dots. Now, this is something that Cadillac has done for a very long time. They no longer do this, but those are fiber optic cables again, and those are actually lights coming from the rear tail lights and turn signals. So if that light stops working, you'll know that you have a bulb out. It's at just the right spot so that the person driving the car can see in the mirror if their tail lights are working or not. Now, just to see how much legroom I have with the jump seat down, let me move the footrest back and then put this jump seat into place. And hopefully you guys can get a decent view of this. The footrest kind of slides forward with the seat when you put it in place too. But unfortunately it's not exactly comfortable. I can't, of course, stretch out my legs anymore. I have enough room to at least lay my feet flat on the floor. The good thing is you can still transport 9 people in this car, so I guess it is nice to have the ability to be able to do that. Now, another thing is that this side of the car has another opening similar to how this does for the climate controls. If you open up that door, there's actually nothing in there. It's almost like a little storage area, but actually the funny thing is that slot is just big enough to fit an iPhone in there, so you can actually slide your phone in there and keep it tucked away if you wanted to. I'm sure that Cadillac must have known that in the future there would be iPhones and people would want to put them in places, so I'm sure that's exactly why it's the perfect size for an iPhone. I'm just kidding. But no, it's kind of cool there's a cubby there, so you at least have some storage space for the back seat people. Alright, now that we took a good look at the interior and exterior of the Fleetwood 75, let's go ahead and take it for a drive. go, driving the Fleetwood Series 75. I've been really excited to show you guys this car for a really long time, actually. This one's just so special. You just hardly ever see cars like this anymore, in this good of shape. Right away, just going to talk about the ride of the car. It's actually very good. I remember when I drove the 76 Eldorado convertible, the front end was recently redone on the car at the time, and it was extremely smooth. Definitely the best riding car that I had ever driven at that point. This is very close. The ride that this car provides is in many ways just much improved because, like they used to say back in the day, the longer the wheelbase, the heavier the car, the better ride you're going to have. And I think a lot of that's actually true. This car really, you can tell, has just a better ride. It's so heavy that the suspension is so soft you hardly feel the bumps. So I'd say a lot of that is true. But right now, this car, the power steering pump is a little out of whack right now, or something, we think, and it's causing the front end to bounce a little bit more than it should. You kind of feel a vibration in the steering wheel a little bit and in the floor. So it's not quite how it should be. The steering's loose. It isn't quite on point, like right on center. You kind of really have to constantly change the way you're turning the wheel when you're driving down the road. It's not a huge deal. That's just how the cars were back then. And although I am in the front of the car right now, it is definitely nice to be in the back. That's really the fun place to be. It's really the most comfortable place to be too. You just have so much leg room. The seats are just as soft and comfortable. You can kind of lean back a little bit more too. You have a nicer headrest. It's just so nice to be back there. And that's the experience that's really fantastic in this car. I think I would prefer having this version, the sedan version of the Fleetwood Series 75s, because let's face it, now you're probably going to be driving yourself, and the limousine version just didn't have that nice of a front seat, and it just wouldn't have been as comfortable for the driver. And that's pretty much what you'd want to do for this car, is probably drive yourself, or maybe your family will ride in the back, whatever, but you're going to be driving it, so you really want to have the sedan version, I think. I also do really love the color of this car. I am a big fan of black Cadillacs. They just seem to look really good to me. But this Commodore Blue is actually really good looking. And believe it or not, we think that this paint color is actually original to the car, and it's also the original paint. We don't think it was repainted, or if it was repainted, then maybe just small sections. And talking about interior quality, it wasn't exactly the best back then. In 1976, Cadillacs, they just were kind of, in many ways, shoddily put together. I mean, you got this hard plastic that does kind of rattle a good bit, and other parts of the car seem to rattle, and a lot of that could be due to age, but it's just not perfect, and definitely not like Cadillacs today. The quality has definitely gotten much, much better. And for such a heavy car, this actually seems to be fairly peppy. I mean, it's nothing crazy, nothing brilliant, but I definitely don't notice a lack of power, which is good, at least on normal driving. We have driven this on the highway a little bit, and it seems to hold speeds pretty well. But just like many of the other Cadillacs I've already brought on the channel, like I've said before, these cars are so unlike the cars of today. So many people really are missing out on a really good experience that you can find in these older cars. And people may not have realized just how nice cars were back then. Like this. I mean, this gave you everything you wanted back in the day. I mean, heck, you have climate control in the back seat. That's very rare. You could have radio controls in the back. You had everything. I mean, that's all you could ever want back in '76. This was the top of the line. This was it. And even though the car is very long, I'm used to driving pretty big cars and long cars. I've probably driven limousines that are longer than this. This still feels not too bad. We're actually on a fairly somewhat bumpy road here. Kind of old, small country road, and car handles it nicely. If I was in the Corvette or something on this road, it would not feel this nice. I would be uncomfortable on this road. Those construction workers were looking at the car. I don't know if you guys saw them, but that was kind of funny. This car does get a lot of attention. I'm sure back then it did too. And I think that's one of the reasons why people wanted to cover up the third window back there, because with all that attention, some people are uncomfortable with being looked at, I guess. What I'm surprised is why didn't they just add like a cloth or some sort of a sunshade or something that you could put over the window that would block people from seeing you. I can see that as fixing the problem just as easily instead of spending $2,000 back in the day to get it covered up with vinyl. But But this also reminds me very much of the Celestiq that'll be coming out from Cadillac. The Celestiq's gonna be on a whole other level, but I'm glad that Cadillac is making a car for the ultra wealthy to purchase, and it just makes it gives them a halo car for people to look up to, and really desirable car that people will want to drive and be seen, and that'll make the Cadillac brand, I think, basically more sought after. Alright guys, you know what? Let's do a quick 0 to 60. We'll see if it actually is at 13 seconds or not. Let's see if I can blow up the engine. Ready, and 1. There's 20 already. Wow. 30. 40. Okay, it's pretty slow here. 50. 60. Yeah, that's definitely way more impressive than the Barrettes. The Barrettes felt like it was just a normal acceleration. This is like a normal acceleration towards the end, but you know, the first 4 or 5 seconds were fairly quick. Definitely not bad. Oh man, this is just riding so smoothly. I mean, it's really just like a pillow, and just the steering, it's all so relaxed. That's what's nice about it, is that, say if you had this car back then, you know, you had a hard day at work or whatever, you climb in, you just have the softest, smoothest ride, most comfortable ride you can get back then. It's just so nice. Oh yeah. Oh, this is boaty. It is very boaty. I love the radio too. Just hearing how it turns on, watching the antenna go up. Oh, that's so cool. I just love that. I wish new cars had power antennas. I know it's not a modern thing at all. I know they have better antennas that they can put in, you know, the glass and everything else. But it's just so cool. Just you have an antenna that goes up and down whenever you want to use it, and then it just hides away in the front of the car when you're done with it. That's what I love about my car. I still drive the Fleetwood Limited, and that has, of course, a power antenna. Not that it's a huge deal or anything, but I just like that, you know, for being a somewhat modern car, and it still has a power antenna, which I just enjoy. I do also wish the headrest was a little bit further forward on this car. Not a huge deal. And I wish we had the power reclining seats. Oh, that would have been so nice, but that's okay. At least this has the nicer seat than the limousine version. Alright guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video of the Fleetwood Series 75. It's definitely nice to get back into the scheme of things and just get back to doing car review videos, and I hopefully you guys have enjoyed this one. Be sure to comment down below if you like seeing this car. If you have any questions about the car, just let me know. I'd love to answer anything about it. And hopefully we'll see you guys again soon in the next video. Thank you. Thank you so much for watching my video. I hope that you enjoyed it. Please remember to comment, like, and subscribe, and to come back again soon for more videos. Thank you. Everyone loves how long this car is, I can tell. Oh man, that truck just like smoked out that bicyclist. Those like huge trucks with like the diesel trucks that can just spurt out that black smoke. He just did that right on that dude. I feel bad for him. Alright. Man, this car's too big. This thing is huge. So kind of almost hard to get into because you have to really like sit back into the car. It's amazing. Oh my goodness. I'm not that slow. This woman wants to pass me and she almost just pulled out in front of someone else. She must just really like the car. She just wants to get a close look at it.